Hi, Trevor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with you, Meg.
Well, we are talking about a great topic today of all about skin health. Who doesn't want beautiful skin? But before we get started, I wondered if you could just give us a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of us have journeys, right? We have a story that helps shape who we are. And so for me, when I was a kid, I had a lot of health challenges. I had a lot of allergies, and they would show up on my skin as eczema and hives and mysterious bumps and rashes. And I just had really itchy skin all the time. And my parents took me to see a lot of different specialists, and I would have an allergic reaction or an adverse reaction to every different medication that they put me on, every topical, every oral medication. And I just kept feeling worse. But thankfully, my parents didn't give up. They kept searching for answers, and they eventually found a holistic practitioner they took me to. And it was the one thing that really turned my health around and really my life around, because for anybody who has struggled with skin issues, especially if you have them on your face or areas of your body that are hard to conceal, it's a very embarrassing thing. It's a very shame-provoking thing, and it can be challenging. As a child, I felt like I was bullied a lot. I didn't feel like a normal kid. And so to have that healing around it really helped me feel like a normal kid. But I remember thinking at that early age, why didn't the doctors present this as an option right from the beginning? Why did I have to go through all these struggles and then finally find this option? And so it planted a seed at 11 years old in my head. And then eventually I learned about naturopathic medical school and thought, wow, that's, that very much aligned with what I believe and how I kind of grew up. And so it wasn't though until about 10 years, I've been practicing for 22 years, and it wasn't until about 10 years into my practice that I started to focus more on skin. And that was because I was working at the Waldorf Astoria Spa, and I was doing a 2-week weight loss program. At the end of the 2-week program, my patients would say, Dr. Cates, I've lost weight. I feel great. But what surprises me is my skin. I didn't know my skin could look this good. So their skin issues were clearing up, or they just had this healthier, more vibrant look about their skin. And to me, I was like, well, of course, it makes sense. Your skin is connected. Your skin is your largest organ. It's right on the surface of your body, and it gives great clues about your overall health. But when I saw the look of surprise on their faces, I realized that it was because it was something that I grew up knowing, because I learned that at a really early age. I realized most people didn't get that. And so that's what led me to write my first book, Clean Skin from Within, and to create the Spa Doctor skincare line, because I really wanted to help provide people with the inside and outside solutions for healthy skin and truly natural options. And then since then, I've gotten a lot of questions about hormones, especially from women. And I briefly talked about hormones in my first book. And so I wanted to cover it more in my second book and really delve into what I find is a very important foundation to build to help balance hormones, because a lot of skin issues do show up as hormonal imbalances, but hormones rule our health in like pretty much every way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I know that it is what you're saying. You had learned this as a child, and then that was just part of your life. And I think we see that where the skin is often a sign of what's going on underneath. And there is a lack of really information that shows people the connection. You think like, okay, I have even eczema or the acne or any of the skin conditions. And you're just thinking it's so isolated, and like what you were saying, I totally agree. You're going to the dermatologist or someone who's just they're always treating the topical. They're always saying like, oh, here's the cream, but you're never really addressing what's underneath. And it's not until you address what's underneath that you can really see those changes.
Right. And with my patients, I was seeing it too, because they would come in and tell me their stories of, well, as a child, I had eczema. So I was given a topical steroid and to suppress the eczema. And then later on, I developed asthma. So then I was given an inhaler to suppress that. And now they come in to see me with an autoimmune condition because their immune system was overreacting, and nobody ever really addressed the root causes behind that. And so it was just going to keep showing up in their health. And if we wait, sometimes these conditions can get a lot worse. A lot of times skin conditions are on the milder side compared to other health issues that we could have. And so skin is oftentimes the first warning sign that we have. And it's like a wake-up call of, hey, your body's screaming at you, yelling at you, saying, hey, I need help. And so instead of just masking it with topicals or things that just suppress it, or a lot of women will just wear more makeup to cover up blemishes, or use different products and not really address what's going on underneath, or have procedures or different things. Because even accelerated aging, while aging is a natural process, we don't want it to be faster than what it should be. Like first of all, we don't want to look older than we are. But second of all, it's not a good sign. It's actually a sign that there's oxidative damage, that there's damage happening in the body that's accelerating the aging process.
Yes. So let's dive into a little bit more about specifically hormones in your skin. So can you give us a little bit of information to dive deep into common hormonal imbalances and how hormonal imbalances do affect our skin? There are so many ways. Like you said, everything is run with hormones.
So many ways. And like one example would be low thyroid function. One of the early warning signs of hypothyroidism is dry skin. But of course, it's not the only symptom. But if someone comes in and they have dry skin, and they also have, maybe they have weight gain, hair loss, constipation, some of the other fatigue, some of the other symptoms of low thyroid, then we would look at that. But low thyroid can cause that. And then on the flip side of that, hyperthyroidism can cause like oilier skin, sometimes acne prone skin. Again, it doesn't mean just because you have acne that you have hyperthyroidism, but you got to have the other symptoms too. But and then of course, our sex hormones. Everybody knows people go through puberty. There's a high likelihood, at least in our society, and with the standard American diet and all of that those hormonal changes are going to lead to acne breakouts. But that's not the only time that puberty is not the only time that people can have acne breakouts. I think a lot of women tend to have it around perimenopause, when their hormones are changing, their sex hormones are changing, and they get some androgen excess. And so that, and it's really the imbalance. It's like, there's no hormone that's bad. It's really important to understand that. Like cortisol is another one. And people always say, oh, I don't want high cortisol. I'm like, well, you don't want low cortisol.
Yeah, either. I agree.
So
it's a bad rap.
Hormone, like, I don't want high testosterone. Well, you don't want low testosterone either. Right. So it's really about getting that Goldilocks perfect state for us. And really balancing hormones is a constant thing. Our hormones are always changing throughout our lives, for women throughout the month. And so we definitely want to get on top of that. And again, so it's going back to skin, like adrenals, cortisol, being really stressed can cause excess cortisol, which can aggravate inflammatory skin conditions. It can increase inflammation in the body and worsen things like eczema or rosacea, really any inflammatory skin condition. So, even melatonin plays a role in the health of our skin and being protective for our skin. And it almost is like an antioxidant in the body and protecting against oxidative damage. So there's so many different hormones that help with our skin. And again, in the balanced state.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether this is something you see, but something I will see commonly is that people come in doing things, actually maybe taking like a DIM or a supplement that when they don't know their hormones, because they've read something online or heard something online, and it's like, oh, well, I'm estrogen dominant, so I'm just going to take DIM. And it's like, well, wait, you really need to test these hormones. Cause like you're saying, it's the Goldilocks balance of what we need sometimes. And so it's tricky.
Mm-hmm. It is true. And, as a naturopathic doctor, I really believe that you want to look at the symptoms, but it's also really important to test. And you don't want to just look at labs and you don't want to just look at symptoms. You want to look at both because they can both give a lot of great information. Unfortunately, a lot of doctors though won't run tests on hormones, or if they do, they don't run a very full panel, and they also don't look at optimal levels. They might just look at if it's flagged outside of a normal range. So especially thyroid, which has TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, has a huge range and of what's considered normal. And so doctors often say, well, you're fine. And I can't begin. I'm sure you've heard this too. I get so many people, and especially women, have been like, I've been told the doctor said everything's fine, but something is not right. I just don't feel like myself. And hormones are an interesting thing. And my my new book, I call it Natural Beauty Reset, is the name of it. And one of the reasons why I wanted to call it Natural Beauty Reset is because I think we often even lose a sense of our own confidence and our beauty when our hormones are out of balance. It's amazing all the things that can go wrong if our hormones are out of balance. And there's some just really simple things we could do to help restore the balance. And I also want to make sure, so often people say, well, I think I have problems with my hormones, so I need hormones. And yes, bioidentical hormones could be potentially helpful for women during perimenopause, menopause, maybe postmenopausal years, but there's so many other things you could do to balance your hormones. And if you just jump to that, a lot of times you don't get the results you're looking for. Your body doesn't handle the hormones as well. So there are so many things we can do to, build that healthy foundation.
Yes. And another, moving on, like for past hormones, another place we often see that people aren't thinking about as skin is the gut. So gut health can really be a really important piece to healthy skin. So let's dive a little bit into gut health and what you often see there.
Yeah, gut health is very important for our hormones and for our skin. And so you probably have talked to your people about the gut microbiome and the importance of that. A lot of people are talking about that these days, but less people are talking about the skin microbiome. So the body has microbiota, microorganisms that live all over and in, and there are different ones that live all around our bodies. And there's a lot of focus right now on the gut microbiome for good reason, because the gut impacts so much of our health, including mental health. It's not just about digestion, which of course it helps with digestion too. But our gut has this great balance of microorganisms that live in and protect it. And again, in a balanced place, it works optimally. And the same with the skin. The skin has a number of microorganisms that live on it and keep it healthy. But when it gets out of balance, then that's when a lot of skin issues can arise. And there's a really great connection between the gut microbiome and the skin microbiome. So when the gut microbiome is healthy, it helps the skin microbiome be healthy. When the gut microbiome is off, we have dysbiosis in the gut, that can oftentimes lead to dysbiosis in the skin. And so a lot of what I recommend people do to help with their skin starts in the gut. And of course, what we put on our skin is also important, because when we put things on topically, it can potentially support our skin microbiome or actually damage it. And a lot of the common practices that people have in their skincare routines actually have damaging effects on the skin microbiome.
Yes. Could you give us some examples of some things that would be good for your skin microbiome?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we want to support the gut microbiome, we want to get foods that are high in fiber. And we also want to eat a variety of foods. So part of what I talk about in my book, Natural Beauty Reset, my new book, is a seasonal approach to eating. And it's really a seasonal approach to food, movement, mindset, and skincare. But part of the reason why I like the seasonal approach is that it encourages people to eat more of a diverse array of food. And there is research showing that when you eat a variety of produce, it actually helps support the diversity diversity of the microbiome, of the microbiota. And so that is a really important one. So fiber, eating a variety of foods. And then of course, there are things that you do that can harm it, like eating a lot of sugar, a lot of processed food. Even stress can be harmful. And then also there are certain medications that can be harmful. Of course, antibiotics, and sometimes they're necessary, but of course, determining, working with your doctors, like, is this really necessary? Do I really need this antibiotic? And if you do, then making sure that you take a probiotic to help replenish that and do things to help support your gut microbiome. And then also overzealous hygiene actually can damage not only the skin microbiome, but the gut microbiome, because if we are using a lot of really harsh cleaning products in our environment, we can actually ingest those and inhale those, and they get on our skin. And so that actually can damage our microbiome as well.
Yes. And those are all just things, those are going to be good for your skin and your overall health. And in general, it is amazing how much the gut is connected to so many aspects of our body. So it's really focusing on that gut health and really doing all the things you just talked about to make sure that you're staying on top of your gut health. So you're not seeing any of these other issues. That's great. Yeah. And what about toxins in skincare? Because I mean, that can be a problem for our skin, our hormones, our body, it's in general. And I think there's a lot of toxins in skincare products.
It's true. And I just do want to say one other thing about the gut microbiome is that sometimes the lifestyle stuff is not enough. Mm-hmm. So for people who they try and they're eating healthy and they're doing things, but they're still having skin issues or gut issues, go see a functional medicine doctor or a naturopathic doctor, or someone who can do some testing to look at your gut health, because sometimes there's an imbalance that you need some more treatment associated with it, maybe some herbal treatments and things. But let's talk about,
no, that's a good point. That way, because I see that, I'll be like, some people come in, they're like, well, I'm trying everything. I'm like, well, you can't eat your way out of a parasite or like H. pylori or things like that. So that's like the next, if you're someone who's having symptoms, definitely, or even can't get your skin to clear up, I think then you need to get the testing done.
And I do want to say, I've had a lot of patients with acne and eczema that didn't have any digestive symptoms, but when we did gut dysbiosis tests, it showed imbalances in candida or parasites, presence of parasites or harmful bacteria, not the right kinds of bacteria, the good bacteria. So even if you don't have digestive symptoms, it can still be an issue.
I know it is confusing because it feels like, well, I'm not having those symptoms. This isn't part of the problem, but it is always good to really put those connections together. And that's what that's what coming to someone like you is, when we're looking at functional medicine and naturopathic, we're looking into all of those things for you. So, that's a time to seek help too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, unfortunately, because of specialties in medicine, we forget that our gut is just not, we don't just treat the gut for, with gut symptoms, it's not just isolated, that we don't just treat the brain if we're having emotional issues. So so much of, for example, that, most of the serotonin that we have is in the gut, right? So we actually need to help our mood by helping support our gut health. So much of that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so let's dive into the toxins in skincare, because that's another big issue in itself.
It is a big issue. And unfortunately, it's been getting some more attention. There are a lot of skincare companies that are seeing that there's this need and this desire. More people are asking for natural skincare products. So there is a trend towards that. Unfortunately, though, the words natural, hypoallergenic do not have any regulation around them. So they're just marketing claims, unfortunately, for a lot of companies. So companies like myself at the Spa Doctor, of course, we use truly clean, truly natural, non-toxic, organic ingredients. But unfortunately, a lot of companies are just kind of using it as a marketing claim. And on average, we use 11 personal care products a day. That's men and women. Women tend to use more than that. And that exposes us to 126 unique ingredients. This is according to the Environmental Working Group. And the thing is that the FDA does not well regulate. They don't regulate the claims, and they also don't regulate the ingredients very well. So where in Europe they've banned over 1,000 ingredients, there was only been about a dozen ingredients banned in the United States. And so it's really up to us to look at our ingredient labels, because what we put on our skin, what we spray in the air, what we put on, our hair and all of these things, it does actually make its way into the body. It doesn't just sit on the surface of our skin. We use hormone creams and patches, and because we know that that is a route of administration for medication. So what we put on our skin does make its way into the body. And for some people, they are even more susceptible. I'm sure you've talked a lot about leaky gut with your followers and your patients, but there's also leaky skin, which is a similar kind of concept, where the skin barrier function, which is one of its biggest functions, is to have that barrier to the outside world. It starts to break down, especially with conditions like eczema. And with this, when the skin microbiome goes off, so then the skin becomes more permeable. So all these toxins that we're putting on the skin can actually get into our systems more. So one of the biggest concerns that I have are a group of chemicals called endocrine disrupting chemicals. And these are hormone disrupting chemicals. So when we get exposed to them, and they're in our air, water, food, personal care products, they're all around us. And when we get exposed to these and they get into circulation, they'll bind to hormone receptors, and they can mimic hormones. So like if we get an estrogen mimicking chemical, our body thinks it's estrogen. So then it'll behave as if we have more estrogen. And that's both men and women, not necessarily a desirable thing to have. And so, or it could just downregulate, it can just really messes up our hormone function. And when we think of hormones, it's not just estrogen, it's not just sex hormones, it's insulin, which regulates our blood sugar. It's, it's adrenals, it's a thyroid, it's all of these. And these endocrine disrupting chemicals have been linked to a number of different health conditions. And those conditions are on the rise, like thyroid disease, infertility, early puberty in young people, and just really problems with our periods, problems with menopause, creating a lot of different issues. So the thing is that what we want to do is reduce our total load exposure to these chemicals, and focus on the areas where you have the most control, like your skincare products, like your personal care products. So if we're looking at ingredients that are endocrine disruptors, and of course it's not going to say on the label,
yes,
hormone disruptor.
Yeah.
So things
bad labeling, right? Bad marketing.
Right? Yeah. And it's, I think a lot of times we look at an ingredient label, we're like, I have no idea what these things are, right? So I'll give you a few to look for. So fragrance is one that is in so many different products, not just personal care products, but cleaning products and other products that we use in our homes. And the thing is that fragrance is not one ingredient, but it's only needs to be listed as a single ingredient. But there could be a number of endocrine disrupting chemicals within fragrance. For example, diethyl phthalate is a type of plasticizing agent, but it's used in fragrance to help the scent last longer. The phthalates are known endocrine disrupting chemicals, and diethyl phthalate is an endocrine disruptor. It's been detected in human samples and urine samples. So we know that it does get absorbed and into circulation. And so, with a lot of these chemicals, our body is able to eliminate it, but some are harder to eliminate than others. And then the other thing is that if you're constantly using the same products over and over again, then your body never gets a break from them. So it might be eliminating it, but then it's still getting it. So basically it's constantly there. So it's going to be continuing to have the same problems. So the things that I tell people to really focus on are the things that you use every day. And so fragrance is one of the things you want to avoid. there can be heavy metals in products, which it's not, again, it's not typically on the label, but it can be hidden under other things. Also things like parabens are estrogen mimickers. So avoid those. And then also oxybenzone is, and some of the other ones that are in chemical sunscreens. I would instead use a more mineral sunscreen, like zinc oxide is a nice alternative.
Yes. And that, I think that gets tricky because you're needing to protect your skin in order to avoid skin cancer, skin damage. And then what you're putting on your skin as far as sunscreen often has damaged, is causing damage too. So I think it can always be, it's really important to look at that, because it's a catch-22 sometimes when people are using these products.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So what would you say when we're trying to avoid some of these chemicals, or do you have any suggestions for healthier alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, for fragrance, organic essential oils are a really nice alternative, and you can also go fragrance free. And if you have certain essential oils that you like, you could always add a drop of essential oils to your products. Or you can choose products like at the Spa Doctor, we use an organic essential oil blend. And again, I say organic because remember that essential oils are very, very concentrated from a plant. So if there are pesticides on a plant and you're getting the extract from it, you're also concentrating not only the essence of the plant, but also the pesticides. So that's why it's really important to get organic or essential oils. And so, I think, and of course, pesticides are some of these endocrine disruptors too. So those are things you want. And then again, zinc oxide instead of oxybenzone. So more of the mineral sunscreens. And then also don't forget, you could wear hats and cover-ups and stay in the shade some, and not necessarily go out in the middle of the day in the full sun. Find times to get creative. But if you do find yourself out in the middle of the day, then wear your mineral sunscreen. And the areas that are most important to protect are your face, neck, and the tops of your hands, because year round, that is where we get the most sun exposure. And even when we're driving a car, we're still getting UVA rays through the windshield, and UVA are actually the most damaging compared to UVB as far as like aging, accelerate aging, and also susceptibility to cancer. So we want to, these are the areas, you think about, you're driving your car and you've got your hands on the steering wheel, the tops of your hand. And we might be covered up in the wintertime with a sweater and jackets and stuff, but these areas are still exposed.
Yes. Yeah, that is a good point. We're not thinking about when you're putting your hat on after you're out of the car, not necessarily while you're driving. So to think of that, you can get sun through the window for sure. And we were kind of talking about seasonal things. So there is an aspect of changing seasons that affect our skin and our hormones.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually pretty surprising how much our hormones change with the seasons. And even in places where we don't have as distinct seasons, we are still changing, because really what happens is the distance from the sun changes. In the winter, it's further away. The length of sunlight hours that we have in the day is longer in the summer, shorter in the winter. So that impacts the way our food grows. It impacts our skin, it impacts our mood, and impacts our motivation, and it impacts our hormones. So when, like, for example, when we look at like thyroid hormone in the cooler months, the darker days, it can change our thyroid hormone. So that's something that can impact our metabolism. And then also estrogen tends to be higher in spring and early summer, which is oftentimes known as a time of fertility, and there's a reason for that. And then testosterone tends to be a bit higher in the fall, and experts think that that's because of a boost in vitamin D in the summer actually causes a boost in our testosterone following that. So, and that's in both men and women. And so these are things that can change. And then also our neurotransmitters, and serotonin is an example of one that can drop in the wintertime, and that can make our mood be not as great. So that's why with my book, Natural Beauty Reset, I want people to kind of get ahead of these seasons and to either use these hormonal changes to their benefit or to get ahead of them, like in the fall, to start implementing practices that will help support your mood. And if you have thyroid condition, maybe go, if you haven't had your thyroid checked in a while, go get your levels tested before you go into winter when you might have more struggles. So just, I think there, a lot of times we get in a rut of doing the same thing, and sometimes they're healthy things. So we're like, I'm eating all the superfoods, but it's good to mix it up, because when you eat foods in season, you're getting more, not only flavorful foods, but you're also getting more nutrient rich foods. And nature is so wise of providing us nutrients we need at that time of the year. For example, in the fall, we have a lot of vitamin A rich foods that, like, and beta carotene from yams and pumpkin and squashes, and that help support our immune system. And so there are things we can look to nature, and broccoli and is high in vitamin C. So there are foods that we can eat, and they're more nutrient rich in those seasons that will help us. And with those shifts and changes with our hormones, with our skin, and then our skincare practices, we can also make some shifts around that too. I mean, the obvious one is perhaps more sunscreen in the summer months when we're getting more sun exposure. But as we go into fall and winter, we might notice our skin start to get drier, or the effects of being in the sun and hyperpigmentation. We can do some things, some exfoliation practices, more antioxidant rich plant-based oils that really help enrich and nourish our skin.
Yeah, those are such great points. And I think we forget, it's like bringing yourself just back to the roots. Literally, I talk to people about circadian rhythm like that too, because, we have the lights and the electronics and all of the things that we used to live by the sun going up and the sun coming down. And we used to live by the seasonal food that was available in that time of year. And there were purposes to all of it. So really going back to thinking about those purposes is like back to the basics can be so beneficial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have lost touch, unfortunately. I mean, there's some really great things about being able to watch your favorite TV show late at night, or to be able to stay up late with the lights on, and those sorts of things, and be able to connect with everybody at any time on your phone. But there's also a downside to it. And so we have to sort of think about, like, how, especially if you are having health issues or you want to prevent them, to just be mindful of certain shifts and changes, which I'm sure you talk to people about, like getting ready for bedtime, and dimming lights, and getting off of electronics, avoiding stimulating activities, and television, all that sort of thing before bedtime, to really help support your body. And those things can shift a little bit. I mean, we just had, in fall, we fall back, and the time changes, and even that hour difference can feel different for us. And so we want to kind of get ahead of that.
Yes. Yeah. And so in your new book, The Natural Beauty Reset, it just published in September, and congratulations. What are the 4 key factors you talk about it that, I know that you're saying with the hormonal balance?
Yeah. So really, when I work with my patients, I was thinking, what are the things that I talk to everyone about that really make the biggest difference with hormonal balance? And that is around food, movement, mindset, and skincare. And all 4 of these the needs change for these with each season. So what I did is I created a 7-day reset for each season in each of these 4 different categories. So for food, for each season, I give 7 days of a meal plan, like what to eat for 7 days. And of course, you can modify this, you can and I have a list of seasonal foods, And I think for 7 days, it's a pretty easy thing to follow. I know a lot of times people are like, it's hard to do this or that, or I can't get foods in season. Well, you could do your best. But I think what happens with that is it makes you more aware of what's in season at that time, what is available to you that's going to be more nutrient rich. And I provide a lot of recipes in the book so that people have ideas, because some people are like, well, I never eat eggplant. You have it on your list. Like, I don't even know what to do with that. Well, you've got recipes to help you with that. So that's food. And then movement. It actually, our needs change to the season because part of it has to do with our motivation. So sometimes we might need to do more restorative yoga poses, or just, do a workout at home. Maybe if we don't feel like getting out and going to the gym or going outside. And whereas in the summertime, it's a great opportunity to get outdoors more and get into nature. But even fall provides opportunities for that too. So there, you could shift up your movement, mindset practices also. Adrenals are, and how we manage our stress is so important with our other hormones, our skin, and our overall health. And so when we give our bodies an opportunity with each season to kind of do a reset with our mindset, stress management practices, that's also really helpful. And then skincare, as I was mentioning, the needs change with that too. And so what are the things that you can do with each season? And each 7-day reset gives you a new opportunity. So you do the fall, and then hopefully you continue some of those practices throughout the fall. And then when winter comes, then say, okay, let's do the 7 days reset for that season and kind of pick up some new practices for the winter season. And then we shift into spring and then summer. And it's a really nice way to help you kind of stay on track with healthy lifestyle choices. Because I think sometimes we get kind of burnt out on it. Like we get kind of bored with stuff. We need to mix it up, and it's good for our bodies too.
Yes, I know you're right. You mentioned like eating the same foods, although they can be healthy when you're doing the same things all the time. Sometimes you're not getting that variety. So that's a nice way to get variety. Well, thank you. You've provided so much great information for our listeners today. And how can they find you if they want more information?
Well, people can go to thespadoctor.com. It's THESPADR.com. So doctor is abbreviated. You can also go to naturalbeautyreset.com to find out where you can get a copy of my book, and then come back and give us your order number and your email address, and we'll give you some free bonuses to complement the book. So we have workbooks and other downloadable guides and videos and things that will help.
Oh, that's great. So I love freebies. I think everybody does. So, thank you so much. I really appreciate all that you've given us today. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's been great to be here with you.
Have a great day.